Okay, guys, so I've been talking a bit about BEM or BEM recently, and it is one of those topics where there's varying opinions on how you apply it. The basics of BEM are pretty simple. The application of BEM is something that people struggle with because even though it's a very simple naming convention, it's how do you apply it and how deep do you go with your names. And everyone has their own opinions. My personal opinion is that the basics of BEM are great. The application of BEM is subjective. It's whatever makes sense to you and how you use it. I've come to a point where I use it from I guess the terminology for it is atomic design, where I look at the smallest components first and only make them part of a larger component if absolutely necessary. And I want to walk quickly through that, well, probably not quickly, and show you what I mean when I consider how would you build one of these Netflix sections here. For an example here, we've got a section here, we've got a title at the top, we've got a row of previews, and each of these has a video card which has a preview image. It's got a little producer logo at the top here. In this case, it's Netflix. And when you roll your mouse over, in that preview there, we now get a graphic or an icon that's for that particular movie. We also get a video in the background. We get a button here to turn your sound off and on. It shows if one they haven't looked at, you find a details pane down the bottom here, where we've got we can play it, we can like it, remove it from a list, add it to a list, give it a thumbs up if we like it. And we've also got this episodes and info button on a row. We then have a metadata row. So what is it? What are the details of it? And then we've got our categories row down the bottom here. So the idea of this is to work through this and go, how would you describe all of these parts using BEM? And look, I haven't done this yet, so I want to work through it from scratch using pure bricks, no add-ons. I'm using bricks 1.9.8, which now has a variable manager, which I'm going to use instead of using a framework add-on. I typically will work with ACSS for my framework and advanced theme for productivity. They make things so much easier, so much quicker. But if you don't have these, want to show you that you don't need them, but I'd certainly recommend both of those if you are going to do a lot of work in Bricks Builder. Anyway, so what are we going to build? We're going to build one of these sections here. So what do we need? We need to go to a empty builder. So I'm going to add a new page. I'll just call this videos and edit that with bricks. And again, I'm starting from absolute scratch here. So I'm going to firstly go into my settings, and in my theme styles, I'm going to create a new one called default. And again, this would be done with automatic CSS in advance. I generally find that you don't need to do too much in your bricks theme styles when you've got a CSS, apart from setting your fonts, I should say, your typography in there. A little bit of photography. Some of the typography is handled by ACSS and some of it you've got to set here. All right, so conditions automatically go to the entire website, so that's okay. We're going to create some... Actually, I've gone a step too far. I'm just going to save that. That's already saved. What I'm going to do, Bricks 1.9.8 introduces the variable management. We go to the variables. We've got no variables in there at the moment. I'm going to create myself a little bit of a framework. And I'm going to keep it simple by using size as my keyword rather than space or radius. I'm going to use the same variables regardless of whether it's spacing, radius, etc. So I'm going to call this first one size. And I'm going to use the modifier syntax. This is not when you're defining variables, as far as I'm aware, my knowledge, there's no definition in BEM for CSS variables, but I like to use the same thinking throughout, whether I'm creating a variable or I'm creating a class. So I use the BEM modifier syntax, which is the 2 dashes. So I'm going to call this XS, and we're going to make that a 0.5 rem. Add a size S. I'm going to make that 1 rem. We'll make a few of these. I'll just skip through these. I won't talk through everyone. What do we need there? M. I'll make that 2.5. We'll make that, what, 5? I'm just making these numbers up. You wouldn't do this. You'd actually have a bit of a plan on how you're going to set these up. So it's Excel, 8 RAM, and my last one I'll do is size XXL. I'll make that 12 RAM. All right. Now the other thing I'm going to need is some box shadows. So I've got a link here to a very simple box shadow example. I'm just going to use these tailwind ones here. So I'm going to copy this first one here, the number 38. I'm going to set that as my medium. So I'm going to create a box shadow. -M. I'm pasting that in there. But what that does, it actually copies the rule name as well there. I'm going to take that out because we just want the value. And I'm going to then also create one more, which is a box shadow. Large. And we'll grab the 39. Paste that in, get rid of our rule name, or property, I should say. All right. And there's our very simple framework ready to go. All right. Save that. Now, okay, back to our theme. So now what we're going to do is on the Netflix here, we've got about 50, 60 pixels there. So I'm going to just create on my section, I'm going to create a link all sides and use the variable picker. This is the new thing in 1.9.8, and here's my variables here. So I want that to be roughly size L all the way around for my padding. I'm not going to use containers because on this one, it's pretty much going to the edge of the screen. So even if you've got a bigger screen, it just goes bigger. So I'm just going to copy what they've done here. So I'm not actually going to use containers. So that's it for my section. And my, just thinking what else I need to do. But typography, I might set my body to Roboto. Nice simple font, and we'll set that font weight to 500. And do I need to set the color here? Not yet. I'm going to, should have done my colors first. Headings, I will leave that on Roboto, and that's made it 700. I think it's probably too much. Make it 600. All right, save that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is create some colors. So in my colors here, I'm just going to click on my little palette. I'm going to create a new palette, and I'll call that, I don't know, streamer or video streamer. Streamer colors, create. You then select the streamer colors, edit it, and set that as your default palette, and save it. Now we've got an empty palette as our default. So the first thing I want to do is create a brand color. So we're going to use maybe this Netflixy style sort of a color like that. Save that. Okay, we're going to create a dark color. So I'm going to get rid of all of my saturation and go right for not black, but nearly black. Say around there. Save that. Maybe a little bit lighter. Save that. A little bit lighter. Save that. So we'll just use 3 of those for now. I'm then going to go to the other end. And so not quite white. Save that. Maybe a bit more. Save that. And a bit more. And save that. All right, now I'm going to look at my list, and these just call color 1, color 2, etc. Color 1, I'm going to call that, so editing this, I'm going to call that brand. Okay, and the enter key doesn't save in these palettes. You've got to click the little checkbox to save that. Color 2, I'm going to call this, oh, what happened there? I'm going to call this BG Ultra Dark. call this BG dark. And we'll call that one BG medium. All right, we're going to start with our next one. We'll call this text light. Keeping this as simple as I possibly can, guys, so it doesn't take too much time in this video. Line. And we'll call this one text medium. Okay, save that. So we've got a bit of a color palette going. Now, unfortunately, Bricks will create random CSS variables for these, but that's okay for this particular purpose. All right, so back to our conditions here under general. Now we've got a color palette. We're going to set our site background to be the ultra dark. Okay, we're then going to set our typography. So our typography here for our body, we're just going to make that the text light, and on our headings, we're going to make that the text ultralight. There you go. Save that. Now, I've got some predefined headers and footers. I'm just going to publish that, go live. I'm going to edit my header. Okay, I'm going to change my style of my header to be the dark and typography here to be, oh, it's already set, so I don't need to change that. Make my logo here. We'll get rid of that, so I'll make that the light version of the logo. In fact, what I might do is get rid of that and add a SVG. Okay, and then we can change the color of it then. So I'm just going to pick the light version of that. And we're going to set the fill color to be our brand color. Weirdly in the editor, some things, it must be to do with optimizations that they've done, but weirdly in the editor, sometimes these things just don't update. But if you hit the save, hit the refresh, if you ever see that, hit the save, hit the refresh, and you'll find that it actually works. All right, so that is that. Now we also need to do the footer. Okay, so the footer, I'm going to set my background to be the next one, so BG dark. Looks like I've got some color on that container as well, so I'm getting rid of that. And there's our dummy footer done. All right, so we're getting there. Here we go. So we're going to go back to the page we're working on. And there's our videos page, and edit that with Bricks. All right, so we've set up our colors, we've set up our variables ready to go. So all we need to do now is add a section. We've got our automatic spacing around there because I set that in the theme. We don't want the container because we're going to go all the way to the edges. And what we're going to do is add a header. Let's have a look at our Netflix here. You've got a header on that section. We have, you might drag it to the right to the left. So we've got a header. On our section here, actually, let's set the default on that. Theme settings section. There's our section. It's going to be there somewhere. There we go. Let's set that to align to the left by default. Okay, so on that heading there, I think that's a little too bold for my liking. So I'm going to go back to my theme styles. Actually, what I might do first is add a basic text and see what that looks like. That's okay. Typography. Okay, so our body, we don't want 500, we'll do 400. Roboto is quite a bold font already. And for our headings, let's make that 500. There we go. That's a bit better. That's more like the kind of boldness, I guess, for want of a better word, that Netflix will use. Okay, so here we go. Now, so we've got a section, we've got a heading, we've got a basic text. Now, what do we got here? So we've got a section, we've got a heading, and we don't need the basic text, so I'm going to get rid of that. And what have we got underneath that? We've got a row. Now, this is where you start stopping and thinking, okay, might you use this row anywhere else, or is it only going to be used in that section? I think it's only going to be used in this particular section layout, because in a different section layout, it's probably going to be a grid or something different. So this is where you start thinking about your BEM naming. All right, so I'm going to add a block, and that's going to be my row. So I'm going to call that the video list. Actually, as I'm thinking maybe that might be used outside of the section. So I'm going to call this section my video section. I'm just naming the elements in bricks at the moment, and I'll come back and create the BEM naming. Once I've named all these, that it makes sense, I'm going to put this as my main heading. So when you've got a simple name like heading or text or icon, it makes sense to prefix it with something else that makes it make more sense. If you've only got one heading, you can just call it heading. Okay, one video list, we can call it video list. So section, main heading. In fact, I might actually put a block in there, because I'll call that our header. Okay, and I'm going to put my main heading inside the header. And the reason I'm going to do that, I'll show you very shortly, is that I might want more than one thing here. I'm going to put just to start, I'm going to put a basic text in there. And maybe we don't have any spacing between these, but we do want spacing between the header and the footer list. So putting that inside a block gives us control over that spacing. All right, so here's our video list. And our video list, we're going to then have another, let's call that a block in there. I'm going to call that a video card. Video card, and a video card's going to have a bunch of properties, isn't it? So let's have a look at these here. So a video card is one of these. So it has, if we look at the whole card, it's got a preview, and then it's got the details down here. So let's start with that. So in the video card, I'm going to add a preview wrapper. Okay, and I'm just going to duplicate that, and I'm going to call this my details wrapper. So I've got a preview wrapper and a details wrapper. Inside my preview wrapper, I've got a image. So I'm just going to add an image in there. Okay, I'm just going to call this my preview image. So again, if it's just image or icon or something, you need to put something in front of it. This one makes sense. But when you name this, it's going to name it from the top level block down anyways, which I'll show you when I start naming the BEM stuff. So we got a preview image. What else do we have? We have kind of an overlay here. So when we actually scale in, so at the top here, we've got a producer's icon. And when we hover, it's actually replaced with a video preview, which we're not going to do here. But we've also got a movie graphic down here, and we've got a button here for the volume down here. So we need a top row and a bottom row to account for those. So let's have a look at that. So I'm going to now go to that. I'm going to create a wrapper inside that. I'm going to call this my preview content. Actually, we just call it content. We can just call this content because it's going to be relevant to that. So I'm going to call it content. Inside my content, I've got a block, which is my content top row. And we've got a bottom row. And I've got inside there, I've got a image, which we might change a little bit later. That will be the producer logo. On the bottom row, what do we have? On the bottom row, we've got the video icon or graphic, and then we've got the button on the right hand side. So let's do that. Bottom row, we'll put another image. And we'll call that our video graphic. And what else do we have? We have a button, but we want to put a icon inside that button. They're just thinking how this works in bricks. Actually, I might just start with an icon and see what that looks like. Just want to try this, and now I just want to see if I link to external, what that actually does with bricks. I can't recall what that does, so I'm just going to have a look at it. What does that do? That creates a anchor tag. We really want this to be a button because it's actually going to toggle something. It's not going to link to anywhere. So I don't really want to use the icon for that reason. So I'm going to get rid of that icon. I'm going to put in a div. We're going to make that a button. Make that a button. Okay, just thinking. Where can we link in that? I don't think we can. It's okay. We will give this a proper ID a bit later, or class name, but actually let's do it now. We'll call it the volume. We're probably going to listen to that button. Put some ARIA details and everything on there later. This is just the layout. So the volume inside the volume button, let's stick a icon in there. I'm just going to use whatever I've got at the moment. You wouldn't use these, I know. You'd use different icons for this, okay? All right, so with that icon there, let's set the color to be our text light. There's some weird stuff. Actually, sorry, let's not set any of that yet because we're not setting things until we create our classes. Sorry. All right, so what do we got? We've got if we look at our Netflix again, we've got our top row, which has got the producer icon. We hover, we get the bottom row, which has got the graphic, the movie graphic, and the volume button, and that changes to a video, which we're not going to bother with. We're just going to use the preview image for this particular demo. All right, so we've got everything we need there to make this work, except for our details wrapper. Let's have a look what we got our details wrapper. What do we got in our details? We've got a top row. So one we haven't looked at, top row, middle row, and bottom row. Let's just do that. And look, you can pare this back and get rid of wrappers and lots of stuff you want. This is really just thinking out how this might look. So I'm going to put a block there, and I'm going to call that my top row. Bottom row, or middle row, mid row, and bottom. Okay, and for the moment, I'm just going to put actually, we'll go inside the top row. We've got some icons, and we've got a button over here. These icons will all be buttons as well. So let's have a look at that. So in our top row, we need a block for the left-hand side so that we get our full width there, and then we need a div, and I'll explain that shortly. So we want the block to take up most of the space on that row and the div to just be on the end. So that's why we've done that. So we're going to put a block there. We're going to call that our controls. We're going to call this one our volume. It says the volume, so it is not. It is the what do they call it here? Info button. I'll just call it the info button. Okay, info button. We're going to chuck an icon in there. And you may build this a little differently. I'm just throwing this out there, and we'll call this our info button. Oh, we don't need to worry about that because they're all going to be the same. The icons are all going to be the same coloring, so it doesn't matter. That doesn't have to have a unique name. This has a unique name because it has a unique purpose. Okay, all right, so that's that there, and that's the info button. Our controls, we want to do another div. And we're going to stick a icon in there. And we'll call this the play button. Let's duplicate that. That could be our list button. I think that was a check. And we'll just duplicate that again, and we'll call that our like button. Okay. Right, we'll come back and set these all up correctly a little bit later, but that is that. Our mid row at the moment, I'm just going to put in a basic text there, and I'll call this our meta. Now, you wouldn't do this because there'd be more to it. But I'm going to call that our meta there, and on bottom row, I'm just going to put a basic text. If we do too much here, we're going to be here all day. And we'll call this our categories. All right. Now, if I had Advanced Thema or ACSS installed now, all I'd have to do is right click on things or click on button. It automatically create all of my BEM classes that I need because I've named these elements in the structure panel in a way that they're ready to be BEMified, for want of a better word. It would automatically do this for me, and that's an absolute time saver. All right. So let's go back to these now. So I need to give that a name. I'm going to call that a video section. So BEM, your block names are just words, all lowercase, and any spaces are separated with a dash. And that's it. That's how you name a block. So that is a top level. So block is a top level of a BEM component. Okay. Now, so that's that. And inside that video section, I'm going to copy that name. And I'm going to call this my __ header. Okay, so that's my video section. Element is the header. So the video section is the block that this header is related to. So that's my header. Okay, and I'm going to call that my main heading. So you don't need to say video section header main heading because we know that this name is going to be relevant to the section anyway, so we don't need to go deep with the names and you know, and cascading all the way down through these. Okay, I'm going to call that, I should have called that my lead. Video section lead. Okay, now here's where it gets tricky. Now this is where you need to make a choice. So is this video list an element of my video section, or is it a block all on its own? So if we look here, here's my video list. Here's my video section, the whole section, which has got the header, it's got this list here, and it's got my preview cards in there. If I look at this list here, my question is, can that be a standalone element? Does that list only exist in this section, or can that be used elsewhere? I'm going to assume that we could use this elsewhere. So what I'm going to do is treat this as a block all on its own. So I'm going to start the video list with a new block class or video list. Okay. if I needed this particular video list to be different somehow because it is in that section, then I would also make it an element. So if I wanted this video list to be different when it's in the video section, I would make the video list an element of the video section. Okay, so here's my list. So I'm going to copy that class name there. And for the children of this, I'm going to use that as my block. So video list. Now the next point here, so that's my video list there, is on the card. Can this card be used anywhere outside of that list? I would say yes. You might have this card in a grid, you might have it in a different display. It's not always going to be in this list here, which is shown as a row. So I would say this is a new component on its own. So I would then start my video list, my video card, I should say, as a new block. And again, if my video card was going to behave or look differently because it is part of the video list, I would then also make that an element. So I'm just going to do that and I'll undo it because I don't need it in this case. So if this video card here is a video. Okay, so what we're saying here is that this card here is a video card. So all the styling of the video card would be on that. But somehow this card is going to be displayed differently because it's in the video list. We would create a element, so that underscore element for that video card, and we would put styling on that to target this and make it different because it's in that video list. Hopefully that makes sense. This will raise some questions, and when Mark and I are chatting next week, if you want to open this up and get more clarification, then please ask questions. So that is my way of doing things. So is basically try and treat everything as its smallest component, that is a standalone component, unless there's a reason it needs to be a part of its parent component. If it needs to be a part of its parent component because it needs to be styled differently, then make it an element of that component. All right. So that's what I'm going to leave it at that. And what we're going to do is grab that, that block name. And so this preview wrapper is going to be an element of my video card. Preview wrapper. Okay. So video card has a preview wrapper. The video card has a preview image. So as you can see, I'm typing all these out, and this is where tools like ACSS and Advanced Themer will save you an enormous amount of time with BEM, because you create all these labels, then you just click on the BEM creator, done. You don't have to go through and think about it and name all these, okay? So this is going to be my video card content. This is going to be my video card. Now, this is where it gets tricky, because I've got a content with a top row on my video card, and I've also got a details with a top row. Okay, so this is where you really need to make sure that you're looking at your elements and going, can I have two top rows because they're going to behave differently, or do I need to name this differently? Okay, so you can try naming these different. You can try, whatever method works for you. So when I see that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to call that content top row. Okay, go there, and this is my content bottom row. Okay, this is my details wrapper top row. It makes the names longer, but they make sense. Details wrapper top row. Details wrapper bottom row. Okay. So back to here. So go content top row. Copy that. So it's going to be my content top row. So you've got to look for name clashes, potential name clashes when you're using simple names like top row, bottom row, icon, text, etc. Okay, so this is going to be my video card content top row. I don't need to worry about that, so I'm going to go to this one. Bottom row. All right. Now these ones here, the producer logo, we don't need the content word there because there's only one producer logo, right? So we can just call that producer logo. Okay, I'm just going to copy that there. So I'm typing it, so I've got the producer logo. I've got the video graphic. Okay, I've got my volume button. This is just an icon, and because our icons are all going to look the same, unless there's something specifically different about it, we're going to make these all the same. So I'm just going to call that icon. Okay, so we get our details wrapper. Okay, we've got our details wrapper top row. See, we've named that so because of the so we don't get it confused. So I'm going to have to call it a little bit longer name because we've got more than one of those. I'm actually just going to copy that bit now because we need to do the bottom row and the mid row. Okay. Oops, what did I miss? Details wrapper. Top row. Mid row. Bottom row. Okay, now there's only one meta and one categories. What do we got here? Controls. There's only one controls. So we just need that as controls. And try and keep these names exactly the same as what you've got there. That is our play button. And that's the icon. We just need to put the icon on there. This is our list button. Okay, icon. Just press the Control Z by accident there. So I need to copy that to the clipboard again. Okay, list button. Okay, that's just an icon, which I've already got. That is our like button. It's just an icon. Info button. Icon. We got the mid row there. Got meta. Bottom row, categories. All right, so I think we've gone through and named every one of these. I'm just going to double click, check each of these. I've got a class on them. have. Oh, what did I miss there? So my play button doesn't have one. Controls, details, wrapper, icon, volume, video graphic, producer logo, preview image, video card, video list, lead. All right, so we have classes now on everything where I've treated my video section as a block, my header as an element of that block, heading and lead as elements of that same block. I started a new block at the video list because it's a new component, because that video list can be used anywhere and it's not necessarily going to look different just because it's inside that section. So I start a new block where I've got my card as a element. So no, I don't. I have a card as a new block again. So this block here, the video list, has no elements. Okay, it doesn't need any elements at this stage. We might add some a little bit later, but we don't need any at this stage. So we've got a new block, which is a card. The reason our card is a new block is that card could be used outside of this section and outside of that list. So it's a component in its own right. Okay, but inside that card, we have a preview wrapper, which is a element, which is at the 2 underscores of the video card. Our preview image is an element of the video card, and the rest of the stuff down here is all elements of our video card. All right, so now we can start styling. I'm going to start from the list. I'm going to start from the list here. Okay, on that list, make sure always in bricks, look up the top left, make sure you've got an orangey yellow selector for your class. I'm going to go to my style for the list, sorry, my content for the list. I'm going to change that to a flex row with, don't want any wrap on this. And we're going to align everything in the center for that. We're then going to this is the variables we use. We're going to put a column gap here using these variables. And let's just use the size S for now. We can always work on that a little bit later. That's the video list. No, we don't. We don't want a, yes, we do. Sorry, what am I saying here? We do want a 1 rem gap there. All right. So then we're on our card. We need to tell it that we want that to be a maximum width so we can get multiples of these across. So I'm just going to take some guesses here. We've got video card selected. And our style layouts, I'm going to set our width to 100%. And our max width, I'm going to set to 300 pixels. So that fits within that 300 pixels there. Okay, and then I'm going to look at that. We're going to need to, what we need to do here. Let's pick an image for our preview image, just so we've got something to work with. I don't know, we'll pick this old car here. So an old car. And with our preview image, we want that to be a style of 100%. Just thinking here. Wide, height 100%. We want the, what do we want here? The aspect ratio we can set there as a default. Let's do a 4:3 and set our object fit to cover. And we can create variations on this, which I'll show you a little bit later. Okay, now preview wrapper. Actually, I'm going to take that off there. I'm going to put it on the preview wrapper. I am going to put it on the preview wrapper. I'm going to set the aspect ratio. And that's because I want to be able to create a modifier on that. So I'm going to do 4:3 on there. Okay, now on our preview wrapper, we've got some absolutely positioned elements in there. So we're going to set our preview wrapper to be a position of relative. Okay, and then what we can do there is on our preview contents, we can set our position to be absolute, and we want to set that to be 0, 0, 0, 0. We don't have an inset in bricks, so we're going to set that 0, 0, 0, 0 to set that on top of our content. All right, now what do we need in the content? We probably need some padding in there, so I'm going to select our variables here, just link all the size, select our variables, and maybe we'll use the size S for our padding in there. Okay, so we've got a bit of padding around our wrapper for the content. The image, let's go produce a logo. Oh, I don't know if I've got one here, so I'm just going to grab. I don't, so I'm going to go over to Logo Ipsum. I'm going to download this one. Okay, and I'm going to upload a file here. It's much harder when you're doing this with a single screen. Insert that. There's our producer logo. What else are we going to do? What's this image here? That is our video graphic, so that's not it. Video graphic. The video graphic. Yes, it is. Sorry. Okay, let's grab another logo from here. Maybe this will be for the actual video itself. Let's pick something like that. Well, let's grab this one here. Okay, I might actually change that one to an SVG so I can change the color of it. So I'm just going to change that now. Okay, chuck that in there, back in there. Where was the graphic? So it's the video graphic. Okay, and going to upload the one that I just downloaded from Lorem Ipsum or Logo Ipsum. It's there. And that way we can set the fill color on that to be. Go. I'm not sure why. Oh, I've got to put it inside the button. There we go. It's going to be outside the button. Okay, so there's our graphic and our logo. On our content bottom row, we want to actually change that to be a no wrap row with main axis of space between. Funny in bricks, unless you click on these when you change the column to row, these don't update automatically. So there we go. There's our icons there. Now, is that just a standard icon? It is. So let's set our size of our icon here using our variables. Let's set that to size M. Is that big enough? That's big enough for this demo. Now that particular one, the button, I wouldn't do it this way normally, but I'm going to just set it here. With the buttons, our background, we need to set that to be transparent. So I'm just going to do raw, transparent, just to override the standard bricks stuff. And the icon, we're going to set the icon to be a typography. Actually, do we need that there? Icon color of text light. So we've got a text light icon there. And what else have we got there? So with our content bottom row, I think the alignment of that was, yeah, it is. So the graphic, some of the graphics are bigger. It aligns to the bottom. Actually, it's a strange alignment, but let's have a look at that. So we're going to align the cross axis to the bottom. Okay, now what we're now going to do is on our content, we want our top content to be at the top, bottom content to be at the bottom. So we're just going to set that to space between. That'll push it from the top to the bottom. We're getting there, right? We're getting there. Okay. Now, that's our content tab so far. Now, details wrapper is a completely different thing. So what we want to do is on the details wrapper, we want the same kind of spacing that we had up there. So on the details wrapper, we're going to go to padding, link all sides, and we're going to use the size S padding on our wrapper. Our top row, we're going to set the the no wrap row, and we're going to set that to space between on the main axis. Yeah, let's push that there. But we've got our controls. We'll do the same thing. We're going to do a no wrap row, and let's set some row gap or column gap, I should say. Column gap to S. So it just separates these, and for that reason, I haven't done that. So change that to a thumb. Okay, so there's our details starting to come together. We want some spacing on this whole lot. So on our video card, we've got spacing between our detail and our preview. So we go to our card and our row gap. We're going to set that to S as well. So it gives a little bit of spacing in there. And our preview here and our details wrapper, we're going to do the same. Set our row gap to the space S or size S. Okay, let's just change that to say, so it's not so long. Meta and categories. And I'm not doing this to be exact. Obviously, I'm not doing this to be exact. What I'm doing is making sure that our BEM naming makes sense. Okay, so we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay, now on our video list here, what do we got there? Let's say on this video section, we want some spacing between those as well. So let's use the same row gap as we've done inside the cards for here. And that gives us some spacing between that top and bottom. Let's just call this our lead paragraph. Okay, here we go. We're getting there. Right. Now on our video card, let's put a style on that to give us a, what do we want? We want to change the background to be our not so dark color. Maybe it's even lighter. Maybe it's that. Let me see. Yeah, it's somewhere in between. So let's put it on there for now. We can always darken that up a little bit later. So on the video card, we also have a overflow of hidden. And we have a border radius on there as well. Let's go to border radius. Use our spacing sizes again. Just use the excess size. It's just a tiny little border on there. And we're starting to look something like what we have in Netflix when it's actually moused over, right? So when you mouse over the Netflix, this is what we get. We get some content down here and we get that there. Now, obviously we need some hover effects and everything to show these. We want to hide that, this bottom row here when it's not hovered, and we want to show these, this here when it is hovered, and hide it when it's not hovered. All right, so that is a card. Right, now let's just duplicate the card. Now we've got a card styled up basically. So we're going to duplicate that card. So we've got two cards there. On our second card, let's just change the preview image. Something else. I don't know, maybe it is this tiger here. Right, so we've got two there. All right, and that is pretty much it. That is how you would structure your BEM classes to allow for this kind of thing. So we have a section. We have, inside that section, we have a list. Inside that list, we have cards, and inside that cards, we have elements. And if we look at the DOM, we come from a section, which is our block, which is a video section. We then have a video section, so there's a header, and that's all that has there. But below that, the video section has a main heading and it has a lead. And then come down to our video list, which is a new block. It doesn't need to be an element of our video section because that is going to be reusable regardless of where we use that. We would only make that an element of our video section if this was going to somehow be different when it is part of that section. Okay, and then just going down through all of these, you can see that every one of these has a BEM element relevant to the video card. And that's how we target these things. So that's pretty much in a nutshell, and we will discuss this with Mark and work through any questions around that or any opinions. This is just my opinion on how I apply BEM, and it's up to you if you agree or disagree, and I'd love to hear your feedback on that. So for those of you who just want to end it here, that's fine. I'm just going to now continue to waffle on, and I'll work through a little bit of styling on this to try and match some of this Netflix behavior here. So let's start with the logo is there when we're not hovered, and it disappears when we hover. Okay, so the logo, actually all of that content, I think the whole top row disappears. So the top row and bottom row do the opposite to each other. So let's have a look at some more variables in bricks. Variables, I'm going to create a transition 1. And I'm going to do this as all 0.4 seconds ease out. Oops, ease dash out. Okay, I'm just going to use this one transition for now. And this is a variable, so we can use this across the entire site. For consistency, we just use the transition for that. Okay, so from this point, you can use the UI for styling from here, but because of the complexity and you end up with styles all over the place, my preference is to use the custom CSS. So we're going to go to our video card. Now, video card is what's animating when we hover these. It's got nothing to do with the list. It's got nothing to do with the section. It's the card we're working on. So we're going to go to the card, and we're going to tell it that when on the video card in our CSS, we're going to use so make sure the card's selected. We're going to go from root. Again, this is where AT would really come into its own. So we're going to go root. Do we need to transition this? I'll set the transition. Transition to bricks variable of our transition. Okay, that's the new, as a 1.9.8, that's the new variable manager that you get in there. If you've got an advanced schemer, you can just start typing it and it automatically completes not just the bricks variables, but every variable that is loaded from all the style sheets. So anyway, so that's the transition for that. Now we want to actually target the details. Actually, let's just work on the top one first. So we want the logo. So how we do this? Root. This is one of the beauties of BEM and the way that bricks works with this root keyword. So we do root __. We want the, what do we got here? The preview content top row. We want that to be there by default, but on the bottom row, we want to only be there when we are hovered. So let's have a look at that. So root content. See, I'm typing this because I don't have to remember what this class is. So I can just look over here and I can see that's called content top row. So my root is the video card. So my root content top row is what I want to look at. And first of all, we're going to just hide it. We're going to set the visibility to 0, or to hidden, sorry. Used to opacity. Visibility hidden, so it's gone, right? And we also want to maybe set the opacity to 0. All right, now, what we're going to do is actually change this. So I'm going to do that again. Copy that, and I'm going to set the visibility to visible and the opacity to 1. Okay, all I'm going to do on that transition here is on the root of that, I'm just going to do transition. So when it's not, so sorry, when it's in its normal state, it's just a transition. Now we're going to look for is when the root, or so when the card is hovered. So we're going to go root is hover. And we're going to allow for accessibility here. So we're going to allow for focus within content opera visibility visible, opacity 1. Okay. Oops, I missed a thing. So we're going to change that visibility to we don't need the visible on this one. Let's get rid of that as I think through this. So this is the beauty of doing these things without thinking. When it's hovered, we want that to disappear. There you go. Oh, why does that transition take so long? Let's have a look at our variables. 0.4 seconds. It should be 0.4 seconds. There we go. Hovering and it's coming, disappearing. We want the opposite to happen with the content bottom row. Just going to grab that. So bottom. So we're going to go from opacity of 0 to opacity of 1. And that's doing the opposite. So the top one's disappearing, the bottom row is coming in. Now, you might not want this to happen in the builder because you can't see it, right? So let's go back to the front end and have a look at the DOM. If we go to the very top of the DOM, you can see Bricks has got a class which is called Bricks' front end. So I'm going to copy that name, come back to the video, and I'm going to prefix this here with .bricks is front end. So in the back end, I can see it. In the front end, I can't see it. So now I've got the effect. Okay, top logo disappears, the bottom comes up, and that's clickable as a button. So that's exactly what we're getting in Netflix when we do this sort of thing. It's actually a bit of a delay before that happens actually, but let's not worry about that for the moment. So there we go, we've got that happening. What about the details down the bottom here? Okay, let's have a look at the details. And this isn't exactly what Netflix are doing. This is just showing you a bit of a preview of what you can do. I will just simply look at this details here. So we want to then look at the root. What are we calling it? The details wrapper. So the details wrapper, we want to have a transition on that as well. We'll just use the transition 1. And I normally call transition 1, 2, 3, so we can have multiple transitions that we can keep consistent across the site. Transition 1, okay, and we want to have opacity as 0. Okay, and again, we only want that to happen if it's the front end, because we're setting opacity to 0. So it's only if the opacity, only if it's the front end. Then we're going to use this same rule here, followed by root details wrapper. And we want to set the opacity to 1. All right. All right, so we've got the whole details wrapper. We've got the wrong thing. It's the details. wrapper. What's above that? Details wrapper. Okay, let's have a look at the, oh, I know what it is. I know what it is. Okay, so come back into our card. It is to do with the visibility. I'm not sure if it's going to be visibility. Hidden. Visible. This is a part of the issue. No. Okay, so that's part of the issue. The other thing is because we've got its displaying as part of the content, it's extending the height of this card. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my details wrapper. Now my card is already set to relative, so I'm going to set my details wrapper to be position absolute. Absolute, and we're going to set the top to 100%. So it pushes it to the bottom. And what else do we need? I think that might do it. Let's have a look. That's it. Where's our details wrapper? What's going on there? Details wrapper. Video card. Video card overflow hidden. That's our problem. Can't have that. What's going on here? Where is our overflow coming from? Video card. CSS. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so that's it there. Okay, let's go to our details wrapper. Details wrapper. Absolute. Top 100%. Left 0 with okay, some funky things going on here. I'm not sure exactly what's happened, so I'm just going to grab that and chuck it in here. See what happens. Here we go. That fixed the overflow issue. It hasn't fixed the display issue. Let's have a look at this. Card. Hover. Okay, here's our details wrapper. Why is it down there? video card. Oh, you dumb. You dumb. Dumb, dumb. Okay, what happened is I thought I'd set the position on the video card to relative, but I hadn't. Okay, so you can set it here if you wanted to, or if you prefer using the UI, go to your layout, just make sure. I thought I'd set that to relative, but it was actually the card set to relative. Anyway, a bit of mucking around here. There we go. There it is coming up there. And you probably have to put some extra styling on that as well. So, but the gist is there. I mean, you can even set the video card here. Go to CSS. Let's say, for example, on the card itself, we're going to do a where's our hover or focus within? Grab that. And we're going to set the card itself to scale 1.1. And there we go. And put a border. We need to put a border on it then. Border 1px solid. Variable picker. Actually, no, we don't have it. We don't have the colors here, do we? I'll just go. That'll do. There we go. It's actually on the wrong, I put it on the wrong thing. Should be around the whole lot. But there you go. So there's a basic sort of example of a Netflix style video grid layout where we've got some BEM naming. We use the BEM naming to style each of the elements and relate them properly. And then we can use the same BEM naming to target those elements using the root, the 2 underscores, and then the element name based on the same name that you've got on the structure panel here. And it all works nicely. So long video. It's a lot longer than I expected it to be, but this is the sort of stuff we're going to discuss live. And if there's any questions, suggestions, if I'm doing it wrong, love to hear your feedback. So I'll leave it at that, and hopefully we'll see you next Wednesday or Thursday. Thanks, guys.